Well, breaking tonight, last night's debate was all about Cruz v. Rubio. The Cuban-American senators sparred on topics from surveillance to defense spending, but it was on the issue of immigration where the two seemed to have the widest gulf. Watch.
There was a battle over amnesty, and some chose, like Senator Rubio, to stand with Barack Obama and Chuck Schumer.
I'm always puzzled by his attack on this issue. Ted, you support legalizing people who are in this country illegally.
For Marco to suggest our record's the same, it is like suggesting the fireman and the arsonist have the same record because they're both at the scene of the fire.
Does Ted Cruz rule out ever legalizing people that are in this country illegally now?
I have supported legalization, and I do not intend to support legalization.
Joining me now, one of the men engaged in that battle, Republican presidential candidate and Florida Senator Marco Rubio. Senator, good to see you.
Thank you.
So it is not true that Senator Cruz has never supported legalization. Not citizenship, but he has supported legalization. You were right on that. We fact-checked him on that last night with Brit Hume right here. He did. He's on the record repeatedly back in 2013 supporting legalization for the 11 million. So do you think he is taking a harder line now on this issue in order to appeal to the GOP base?
Yeah, he clearly was a supporter of legalization in the amendment. He talked about how he wanted the bill to pass. He said, I want immigration reform to pass. And basically the argument he was making is, we can pass immigration reform, but we can't do citizenship. Let's just do legalization. And if we do that, this bill has a chance of passing.
And let me just tell the audience, we have all that sound. I could take up the next 3 minutes playing it for you of Senator Ted Cruz saying all that and giving local interviews. He said it. It's true. So I just want them to know it's not in dispute. He said it.
Right.
So the question is whether this is a tactical shift to appeal to the
Well, there's no doubt. I mean, he
base.
doesn't mention that in the speeches in Iowa. He obviously mentioned that at the time because that's what he wanted. And now, of course, in this campaign, he's looking for a political advantage, and so he tries to obscure the lines on it. I want to be clear. I like Ted personally very much. These are important differences, particularly on the defense stuff that we should talk about. On the issue of immigration, look, in 2013, I live in a state that's deeply impacted by immigration. And I said, I want to try to make a difference. Now, I know that Harry Reid controls the Senate, so let's do the best we can in the Senate. Hopefully the House will make it even better, and let's see if we can make some progress, because after 30 years, this problem was only getting worse, not better. Now, I realize that we're not going to be able to do anything on immigration until you bring illegal immigration under control. People just are saying, we have 250,000 people coming to this country illegally every single year.
Yeah, so you sort of gotten to a harder stance on this than back in 2013. You realize you need to do enforcement first.
And not only have to pass an enforcement bill, you have to actually do it and prove to people that it's working before you can do anything
Because they
else.
won't support you otherwise.
They won't support it, and at this point, it's the prudent thing to do, especially after 2 migratory crises on the border, 2 unconstitutional executive actions, and so forth. And plus, we just can't pass this comprehensively. Okay. But the point I was trying to make is, I don't know how he can attack me on this issue when, in fact, he himself supports legalization and did.
Well, he says he doesn't now, but clearly he did back in 2013. And I'll ask him about that the next time I get to talk to him. Let me ask you about defense spending, because you hit him as follows for not supporting this National Defense Authorization Act, saying you voted against funding the military. Watch.
3 times he voted against the Defense Authorization Act, which is a bill that funds the troops, that also, by the way, funds the Iron Dome and other important programs. And I have to assume that if you vote against it in the Senate, you would also veto it as president.
Yes, it is true that I voted against the National Defense Authorization Act because when I campaigned in Texas, I told voters in Texas that I would oppose the federal government having the authority to detain U.S. citizens permanently with no due process.
3 points of distinction. The first is, if you're an American citizen and you decide to join up with ISIS, we're not going to read you your Miranda rights. You're going to be treated as an enemy combatant, a member of an army attacking this country.
So Yahoo News did a fact check on you on this, and they said, number 1, you didn't even show up for the vote on that. This bill that you were so concerned about. And number 2, they say actually the military gets its funding from the annual appropriations bill, and you and Cruz voted against that.
Well, on the first point, the NDAA does fund the military because it authorizes the spending of the money.
It authorizes programs.
But you can't spend it if it's not authorized. It's an important bill. I voted for it 3 times. I've never opposed it. I missed a vote. I'm campaigning for president, but I've never opposed it. I voted for it 3 times in the past because it authorizes the spending on things like the Iron Dome.
But the appropriations bill actually gives the dough, and you voted against that, and so did he.
So the appropriations bill finds the money. The authorization bill actually authorizes you to spend it. Without the authorization bill, you cannot spend it. It's an important bill. And it's why I've always supported it, and I'm a supporter of it, because it funds the troops, it funds the Iron Dome. And not once, but 3 times he's voted against it.
Senator Marco Rubio, it's great to see you.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here tonight.